So hi to everyone joining the live streaming. But now we're back on. At the moment, there are some breakout groups. I'm going to try and put you into one of the breakout groups, and then we will resume in about 20 to 30 minutes. We will have a presentation of the Civil Society Alliance. So apologies for the technical problems, but we're now online. Things are working now, so we hope you can hear us. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to put you into one of the workout group sessions now.
Are you already planning activities that will put the link to the year?
It's working.
It's about working, that's not necessarily to reinvent the wheel, but actually how to make the connection with things that you want to do anyway, how you the connection.
It's too far away.
Let's talk about it.
There's a coalition of NGOs working on health and development that are trying to come together so that all of the activities we undertake in April, which is a health theme, actually are complementary. We don't actually organise events on the same day. We have a series of events. We don't compete with each other, and we mutually support each other. And we also try and co-curate the social media feeds for the European year for that month. So we maintain the health theme during the health month.
That's right.
And that would be people like MSF, Oxfam, ourselves, so the Children, Stop AIDS Alliance.
A meal at different levels in society, so very local level, it can be at national level, possibly trying to get one of these world meals either in the European Parliament on a certain day, or at the Expo in Milan, or at the European Development Days. Could be any of these. It's going to be a big undertaking, but to try and do it at different levels and to engage people to push for changes to European policy linked to food.
Great, thank you very much. Yes.
Go ahead. So for Plan International, just what the EYD 2015 means for us. We struggle a little bit because we're a network organization, so we have our members in the different member states, but we struggle a little bit to make it a consistent approach to what EYD meant to all our European members. So I think what this means for us is an opportunity to sort of present and highlight one of the main themes for Plan, which is youth economic empowerment. So we will mainstream youth economic empowerment throughout the whole year of the European Youth Development, because there are many monthly themes which you can link up to youth economic empowerment, whether education, even health, you can link into SRHR. There is the youth month, there is the business and sustainable, there's the June month, yes. So we will use youth economic empowerment as our main theme for the year, but we want to engage our members in the different capitals, but it will mainly be communication. So we'll have a special youth economic empowerment /EYD page where we'll present a little bit why we're working on this theme, and we'll have an editorial grid where every month we'll try and have op-ed interviews with key stakeholders on youth economic empowerment, which will link to EYD. And for the moment, we're trying to see how our European offices in different European capitals will also be using the theme, and we'll have one strap line which everyone will be using. So this is what we're planning to do, and having also case studies of the work we do.
Great, thank you. You next. Go ahead.
Okay. I represent ALDA, the European Association of Local Democracy. What we're going to do this year is mainly, but not only, through a dear project we just got from the last call, a 3 years project that lasted until 2017. We are a mixed network, 180 members representing both civil society and local authorities in more or less 40 countries in the large Europe, so in member states and neighboring areas. And our challenge is also to get to involve local authorities in all these new narrative and attention. For example, in this DEAR project entitled LATA, we just started on 1st of January 2015. We foster cooperation between civil society and local authorities in promoting development, reflection, action, education, fostering citizen participation mainly at the local level. Through this synergy, peer-to-peer support and cooperation between local authorities and civil society. This is the main asset of our, I would say also our project, but I would say also of our mainly daily work.
And how are you using that for the European year?
The focus is development education and organizing. So all the partners represent association, local authorities, or network for civil society, and they are strongly involved at the local level and as multipliers to involve their members as agents for development. So a lot of action, especially this year, will be to promote this role of association, local authorities, national association mainly, but also European association. For example, ASEAN, the European region is involved, mainly all the national association, local authorities, but together with other networks of civil society to promote this kind of reflection, as also was highlighted by Shimos in the years before.
Around the new narrative.
Yeah, and these people are not so involved in development. And so if you want to build a new narrative with different stakeholders rather than the ones which are involved on daily basis in development, this is our aim.
Okay, thank you. Ingo.
Yes, GCAP, we planned for 2015 already since about 2012 to make it a year on global justice, and therefore the European Year for Development is of course fitting very well, especially the citizens' involvement. So yeah, our national coalitions, they plan public mobilization activities, and it's all over the year as part of Action 2015, but there are certain key moments starting from the 8th of March, then in May there's a main key moment, week of action, then there's a G7 summit in Germany, and then the September summit in New York, and then of course the COP21 in Paris. So when we want to try to coordinate also in different countries. So some national coalitions do focus more on advocacy work, but many are now starting to become active and to do smaller or bigger offline online actions.
Anybody over here? Yes.
Yes, I'm Lisa from INRIC, which is a United Nations Regional Information Center here in Brussels. And INRIC is the focal point, according to European Development for all 26 UN agencies here in Brussels. So we are trying to coordinate all the individual actions related to EYD that the 26 UN agencies are undertaking. And of course, 2015 is also an important year for the United Nations, 70 years UN, and also Sustainable Development Goals, COP21. So an important year for us. And what we are trying to do is reach out to partners in Brussels, in Europe. We are not in Ireland, of course, so we are looking, besides, of course, partnerships with the 26 UN agencies in Brussels, also with NGOs, with Brussels government. We are starting up right now, so we don't have complete plans, as January traditionally is a very busy month for us. But that is why I am here. I'm very interested in what you are doing. As of course, as a Regional Information Center for Western Europe, we are trying to reach out to European focused organizations in Brussels.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah, I'm from the European Anti-Poverty Network, and we're a broad network with 31 national networks, grassroots organisations, plus European organisations, very much focused around direct participation of people experiencing poverty and uniting at EU level. I have to say we're not doing anything specifically at the moment. I think we've come up with, I'm looking at Pierre as well, because I think we're very inward looking. Although we want to be broader, and I think it's very interesting to us to really try and see how we link up our EU agenda, our EU obsessions with this broader movement. What's particularly interesting for us is that we have key things we're going to focus on. We have this, we organise this participation of people experiencing poverty, direct meetings with decision makers, and we have a big meeting supported by the presidency, etc. So it may be interesting to try and link that together. We have a big project on minimum income, which is, we tried to link that to the social protection floor, so that's a key area which I think we've now got renewed funding for that. And we are actually the coordinator of an alliance for a more democratic, sociable and sustainable EU, which is trying to bring links with environmental organisations, women's organisations, rights organisations, social NGOs and trade unions to work together for a more social sustainable vision at EU level. So obviously the immediate link is to say, and I think it's very exciting actually, because I think the vision is so much more ambitious at global level and EU level. We get stuck in our little ruts of little amendments. So yeah, I'm excited about it, and I think we'll take back the information and think about how we can link up realistically within our own potential for action.
Yes, I am Lucia Conti from Habsi Foundation Milan. I will briefly inform you about the main initiative already taken or scheduled in Italy. In December 2014, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has launched a tender for the service communication and media relation with the European Year for Development. So an agency will manage these services related to three main events, which are the European Development Year, the Week for Development Cooperation, and the Expo 2015. Then in July 14 and 15, will take place the meeting of the informal council of the Minister of Development with the broad participation of civil society, cooperative, NGO, and around the main issue, which are food security and nutrition, and then the role of the private sector in development. The 15 will be a special section for the role of private sector. And then in Rome will hold the International Conference of Nutrition, everybody knows, and Milan will host also the Expo 2015, and the Italian government is scheduled a lot of collateral events with the civil society. And the Expo's theme is around food, isn't it?
It is around the environment, around yes, food and environment. Yes.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes.
From WWF. Hello. Concretely, what we are planning, certainly there will be a deer project that has been just approved about sustainable consumption of seafood, like sustainable seafood consumption in Europe, making the link between producer countries and consumers in Europe, and talking about the European Year for Development and responsibilities of EU citizens through their lifestyles and consumption habits, with focus on seafood. And then we are also exploring a bit ideas of what to do here in Brussels with other partners, either at European Development Days, and certainly food consumption is one of our main topics that we follow at EU level as well, but because our main objective in general as an organization is to reduce the footprint of people in general on natural resources on the planet. So that's one of our main priorities, to start a bit of discussions with fair trade as well to see what could be done together, because alliances is one of the things that we look for. And another thing is about the textiles, like it's actually coming from the Commission itself. They want to promote this flagship about fair and sustainable garment industry in developing countries. And so they will have a meeting next week, the 23rd. And many of us, I think, will participate or are planning to attend, so to see how to follow up with that initiative and take part. And one last idea is to discuss about China's role, China's emerging role as a global player, because we have a focus, a major initiative in the network about that, and how they use resources in Africa, how they invest in Africa, and try to green and make those fairer, and make the link with European also consumption patterns.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes. So quickly, as a white male, I'm full of prejudice. So when it comes to development policy, the way I might see it, or it might be understood, is that development is not really a new core policies, and it's about people who are different from us outside EU. So what I really like and what Tobias says is how global inequalities are linked to domestic inequalities. And as social platform, then it's something that we said is one of our priorities to organize an event on inequalities, both at EU and at global level, where we could have a joint event, not only between us social platforms and development organizations, but also with the trade unions and also the environment organization, and what the different form of inequalities. And the perspective or the aim of such event or campaigning, because I'm linking to the second message, is I'm guessing that the development policy needs a change of narrative on how it's done, as well as EU policy needs to change of narrative on how it's done. And why not doing together, and instead of considering development policy as a separate policies, that EU internal policy, how they could be coherent and consistency between external and internal policies on a topic which is major, which is the rise of inequality both internally and externally. So that's
great. So I'll just touch a bit about the women's movement, and then I'll sum up what I just heard the main themes were. So for us, and sort of builds a little bit on that, on what Pierre's just said as well, the fact that these new sustainable development goals should be looking at rights and inequality globally at university is really important, because women's rights are undermined and attacked everywhere. Women achieve their human rights less than men wherever you want to go in the world, including Sweden to Afghanistan. So there's some universal issues about why that is that need to be tackled at a much more global level. This year, we work at the EU level, and the EU often feels a bit smug about how much it's achieved on gender equality, but there are still huge inequalities between women and men, whether it's in terms of violence, whether it's in terms of pay,
5 more minutes,
etc.
so please move to the
An additional thing I wanted to say is that 2015 is also the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, which was a groundbreaking human rights framework looking at women's rights around the world. So we will be framing all of our year in celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. We're looking at what's been achieved in those 20 years and where the gaps still are. We've been looking at that at the EU level, but our colleagues across civil society and women's movement in the world have been doing that in all the regions of the world. And we're coming together in New York in March around the UN CSW meetings to bring all of that together. And that's very directly linked into what's happening with the Sustainable Development Goals, because finally, it looks like we might have some quite transformative standalone goals on women's rights in that universal framework. And what universal means is that those will apply in the EU as well, and not just apply to Zimbabwe and Afghanistan. So we need to make sure that the internal EU actors, that means at national level and here in Brussels, understand that those things are connected. So we will be making those connections throughout the year. We will be doing also monthly actions on each of the 12 platforms for action. Beijing had 12 areas of action. So every month we're doing an activity. And I think that's one of the themes I've heard quite a few times. So maybe it's just we need to make sure, I think I understood that our months are linked up with CONCORD.
Your month is March.
No, we're doing something every month. And I believe that they're the same issues as CONCORD's monthly actions, because we're using the UN days as a guide. So I think there might be a theme where we could join up some actions occasionally between different organizations, both at Brussels but also national level.
What I was pointing towards is that, he mentioned that every month has
I know.
been March is on women and girls.
Yeah, I know. And but we are also, women and girls, there are other issues. So this month, for example, we're doing economic empowerment of women. Next month, we're doing women leadership, etc. So one thing we were going to propose is a kind of, we could curate the website of the year during the month of March together with other women's rights organizations. We've already been talking to IPPF that we could be the voice from New York around the CSW, for example, so make that link. So there will be, for example, there will be a new European gender equality strategy. So we need to make sure that that links in with what's happening globally as well. There'll be a gender action plan. Yeah, and there'll be a gender action plan for the external stuff. So how do those things connect? So that just in a very brief thing. So I think if I get the themes that I just heard, there was citizens' action. There were monthly themes that came up, and I just need to make sure they're linking up. There's inequality, and there's the universality. And there's also this issue of a new joined-up narrative around both like rich world, poor world, getting beyond that, but also linking with the environmental agenda. sustainability. That's what I kind of heard coming through as themes. I've taken a note of the different ideas and activities that are happening. There were quite a lot around food, and I think that's around sustainable consumption, but also food and agriculture. Partly, perhaps also the expo is driving some of that. So I think that might be a theme that we could perhaps link up some of these agendas about inequality, production, and environment.
Policy coherence for development is also related to.
I didn't hear anybody mention that.
It relates.
Is it that? So policy coherence for development, for those who don't work on development, is who can describe
Fair policies, so that we are coherent between all of our policies, internal and external at European level, and our development objectives.
And it's in the treaty.
It's in the treaty, it's a binding commitment.
Yeah.
Yes. We're also very strong. We have a very strong department that is in art. So, for example, we have some of our artworks are here in the European Parliament, for example, and we have others in, for example, in the Metropolitan Museum in New York.
And how does that link to the European Year for Development?
Well, with art you can communicate.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I arrived late. I apologise. But I work for Climate Action Network Europe, and obviously for me, one of the biggest links is the issue of climate and development. And we haven't concretely thought through how we're going to link up some work around the EYD yet. I know that the thematic month for climate and sustainable development is November. Personally, that's far too late to do anything about climate. So I would think that we would link up around the issue of climate in relation to the other thematic ones potentially, and how we can continue getting the message through that these two are extremely important factors to work together. So that's just to chime in. Another issue.
Definitely organise massive mobilisation for December, right? For the COP.
Before December.
Great. So we've got a second question.
Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt. Unfortunately, we have to. This is not the first meeting. There will be others to come, and we will have the chance. I hope very much, I'm sure, to continue this conversation. But I will ask you to stop now, because there are important points still to be discussed, which you also are certainly very much interested in particular on the sub-branding, for example, or other things. So thanks a lot for your contribution. This was quite rich discussion. I have the impression, even in this group, there is nothing on the flip chart, but Joanna took it.
A lot on the paper.
The chart's overrated.
So I would now ask very shortly each of the conveners just to raise one point you would like to share with the group. Very selfish. Go ahead. The one activity which is really amazing, everybody should know about, the one thing the Alliance should do, and certainly not to drop and take this forward in the governance of the Alliance. So please, maybe, Sergio, let's go this way.
It's true that it's the best way to make a lot of enemies, because if I pick one topic, make everybody but one person happy. But is it one per each at least, or one to one? One per question or one?
Well, 1 minute.
1 minute. That's better. So on the first question about what we were planning to do, I think it was very interesting. I believe most of the activities are advocacy-oriented activities where a link to UID can be found, and where there is an eagerness to work with others in this context to build common causes. In terms of what could be done together, I think that the strongest need was some sort of information tool / overview / database that gives information about what the main asks of organization or the values we stand for, and the type of events that we would do. This would, together with a contact person, this would need to be done early, so that right early in the process, people would start making the connections and contacting each other for possibly doing some joining forces to do something together. And then there was an offer as well by the Disability Forum and members that also, when it comes to disability issues, they could serve as advisors to introduce accessibility considerations and a good framework in the events that you organize. I'm assuming that these may apply to other specialist groups here, where they may help also to give advice on what is the right way to do events to be inclusive. And then there was a suggestion as well to organize 2 big events where all together we can forward behind the alliance and we come out, let's say, as a European alliance.
Great, thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think the information sharing is certainly a key issue, and I think in the project team, the colleagues will take this forward, and I don't know if the CONCORD net could be used or some other tools, but this should be set up quickly, especially considering that not everybody is here today in this room, even if it's packed, but everybody who wants to be part of this should be informed and up to date constantly, obviously. Holly, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's equally hard to summarize everything that we discussed, but I think there are 2 sort of things that we draw out of it. One, very much agree with the need for sharing what's going on using social media. We heard about an example in the UK around storytelling and raising skills around storytelling, how people can get their messages, how people can communicate what they're doing in the different themes in a kind of simple, inclusive, engaging kind of way. So I think the use of social media in that is going to be crucial, so that this is very much about citizen action, about people coming together, hearing about each other's stories. But the second, I guess, big recommendation, which I think came from us, is around the events and having a clear calendar somewhere, because there's just so many events coming up, and we've heard about so many different things, even just from our group here, and I'm sure across the Alliance and beyond, there's going to be so much going on, and just having somewhere where there's some kind of reference point, even potentially having it as a Google open calendar that people can upload their own events on a shared calendar in somewhere, just so that we all know and we keep in touch with what's coming up in different countries.
Okay, thanks a lot. Information sharing again, and the storytelling, a very interesting approach indeed, which we might want to explore further a bit. Alan.
Yes, I think I'll take a bit on behalf of the group. We can echo very much what was said in the other groups. So I think it seems quite similar. Perhaps to bring out the 2 issues. Well, when it comes, I think there was quite a lot of appreciation for this moment right now, because at least in our group, there are a number of organizations that are still planning activities, still thinking through. So there was quite an attention of coming here with the intention of doing outreach towards other organizations. And that seems to be also the main expectations towards the Alliance itself as well. When talking about the Alliance, I think perhaps one of the main things that shined through was an expectation of really coming together, discussing, trying to actually get to a common vision around certain issues that we could then communicate in a clear way. Because we all work around issues of inequality or poverty, environment, etc. But we don't necessarily, when we talk about things, we perhaps don't necessarily understand them in the same way. So to do this kind of message building that then can be used more broadly, and importantly, perhaps not only towards the institutional players, but also towards other civil society and citizens. And then, of course, one of the expectations towards the Alliance would be, as Shannon said, that it wouldn't be something that would end with this year, but could be going on for a long period.
Thank you. In terms of the messages, there is already a CONCORD document on the key messages for the year, which was formulated by the CONCORD task force. But this could probably be a base to develop this further, and also, of course, get a broader input into this joint messaging. Thanks. And Joanna, finally.
Thank you. See, we had lots of discussion and ideas in our group. But I have the power of the floor. So we would definitely agree with what was already said. I think we had a lot of similar discussions. One of the things that came up a lot for us was this importance of linking up those of us who are working on internal issues, internal EU issues to do with rights and participation, with those who are working globally. And so there's a broad welcoming of both this initiative, but also the approach to join up those agendas, because we need to, because the issues are universal. And there are already, of course, universal agreements in place, such as the Beijing Platform for Action, which also celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. So that's the platform for women's rights. And we'll be doing some work on that and linking that up with both the EU and the external agenda. The other thing that came up a lot in our group was the idea of monthly themed activities. So it'd be really useful if somebody somewhere, it's a bit more than just the calendar, actually tries to make sure that we are getting some synergies out of our different monthly events and not kind of clashing around different issues. So I think that would be something perhaps to explore if you haven't done already. And then there was one offer here that we should have a joint event with perhaps a social platform and the Green 10, looking at the issues of inequalities, so in Europe and outside, so like the global inequalities, and also trying to link that to the issues about sustainability and environment.
Okay, thanks a lot. Great. So this session would certainly have merited much more time. Sorry if we created some frustration about this, but the event is short, only 2 hours, and we will continue this conversation certainly soon. One thing I take out of this feedback is that there was no very strong call for a joint advocacy strategy or something like this. But maybe that's something we need to discuss a little bit deeper in the government's group of the alliance. And now at this stage, it's also understandable that first the networking and the information sharing is of course the strongest concern in terms of the role of the alliance. So thanks a lot. I hand back to Seamus, who will introduce the next steps.
Thanks, Tobias. I don't know whether everybody wants to reorientate their chairs. Now's the time for a bit of a shuffle. Okay, what we'd like to do now is to give a little bit of information about the project.
The Commission looked at CONCORD, said, you are the main interlocutor for us, which means that we need to convene this broad civil society alliance, and we put together a project. As Seamus said, its main important element is try to really involve different civil society organizations, so not just CONCORD members, but many different sectors. Try to participate and organize important events during the year. And we have two main big conferences budgeted in this project. One of those could be, and we already advanced a little bit the work on it, and perhaps, I don't know if Sergi, you would like to say something on it, on human behavior and perhaps food and consumption. That was an idea that came out of, CONCORD members, the reflections, but I think it could be a topic very important also because of Expo Milan. But, the topics and the final title of these two conferences will be decided by the Alliance. So then when you will hear about the structure, we will see how to, to reach an agreement and how to invest in these two conferences that we might see one in the first 6 months and the other one in the second 6 months of the year. The second one, of course, could be something on inequality, and as you mentioned, but we really need to brainstorm a little bit further on those. 750,000 euros are for a sub-granting mechanism that is launched now, and which first deadline is the 26th of January. And the selection committee will be together on the 2nd of February, try to first assess the proposal that we will receive. We strongly encourage cross-sectorial projects, so try really not to focus on your things, but to involve at least one or two other sectors that might be interested in one specific area, and really try to work together for messaging, for key asks, and for citizens' involvement. Other important parts are, of course, linked to communication. For the European Commission especially, communication is a very, very important part, because we really need to talk with citizens about complex issues, but using means that are, day by day really used in our life, and not just from our sector as specialists, but especially from young people or even elderly people. We know that 1111, the Belgian platform, will do something with elderly people. So really try to merge different generations on key thematic areas. So of course, then there will be a list of key events where everyone will be involved, especially the European institution. You heard about this opening event in Riga. There will be a closing one in Luxembourg in December, and key events during the year, like the European Development Days in June. So really also in the project, we will try to link up these activities that will come out, the two big conferences and the sub-granting mechanism. So if you have project proposals with some key events and activities, please take into account the thematic months and the development of the different activities throughout the year. I think this is more or less, in a nutshell, what we put in the project. Of course, I can give you more details. I can share with you the list of objectives and key activities. And we are happy to receive your questions and answer you as soon as possible. Also on the sub-granting, that will be explained properly by Marco right now.
Okay. Thanks, Francesca. So I will give you a little bit more detail concerning the sub-granting scheme, which, as Francesca said, which is actually one of the most important tools within this project of CONCORD for the European Year of Development 2015. And to this action, most of the budget is allocated. As Francesca said, 750,000 euros are allocated to the sub-granting scheme of the project. So just to give you the main elements of the sub-granting scheme, which has been already launched a few days ago. First of all, concerning the objectives, of course, they need to foster the objectives of the European Year of Development. And highlighting two main issues. One was already anticipated by Francesca. This cross-sectorial approach and multi-stakeholder cooperation is an asset for the project submitted within the sub-granting, and of course to promote a wider participation of organizations which are not engaged on daily basis on development, but to promote a wider cooperation within the key topics of the European year. So the activities sub-granted can be developed at different levels. That could be local, grassroots, national, European level activities, actions. With this approach, the range, so of course, grassroots organization and grassroots activities and European activities deserve different budget. The range is from 7,000 euros to 60,000 euros. So this allows also different kind of projects to be realized, even for small organization with a grassroots level focus and European projects with a wider scope. So from 7,000 to 60,000. And there is a request for a co-funding of an average of 30%. In this sense, the selection committee may also accept different proposal and will be evaluated directly by the selection committee, but in principle 30% of co-funding needs to be covered by the applicants for the sub-granting scheme. Several criteria will be taken into consideration, of course, by the selection committee.
that will be chaired by Seamus, and there will be other members which are already listed in the call for sub-grants. The selection committee will be composed by the director of CONCORD, the member of the secretariat of the Civil Society Alliance, member of the task force steering group of the European Year, but there will be also 3 representatives of CONCORD networks and also 1 member of the Alliance, which is not member of CONCORD, also to enlarge and to offer the opportunity to get also with an active role in the selection committee. As for the applicants, at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong in this, there is still a negotiation with the Commission according to the countries which are eligible. For the moment, it's sure that the new member states are, of course, eligible. As far as the candidate, potential candidate country, we still need to receive an official answer from the Commission. So in the call, there is already mentioned, we are already mentioning that it's open also to accession candidate, potential candidate country, but this is still to be confirmed by the Commission. That is,
Two that are not included are Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo. Kosovo, not for sure because it's not recognized by European Union. Bosnia and Herzegovina, we are just waiting for a final confirmation. But the other candidate countries are in. So Serbia, for example, or Albania are eligible.
Okay, but that's already defined. Okay. You will have in the call, you can find all the formal criteria. I just want to highlight the need to, in order to be eligible, to respect the Charter of Value at the basis of the Alliance, the European Year 2015, and also to become a registered member of this broad alliance of the European Year of Development. This is a condition to participate in the sub-granting scheme. Concerning the timing, Francesca already told which are the time frames. So the first call, let's say the first deadline is the 26th of January. I would say, I don't know, those of you who already had a look, the application is, I would say, for those of you who are familiar with the EC application, what we chose as an application is quite rather simpler. So don't be afraid concerning the timing. But the first call will be on the 26th of January, the first deadline. There might be, in case some remaining funds are still available, a second call in February, but this is not given for granted. So it depends on the projects we receive, the assessment that the selection committee will give to the first project received by the first deadline. In case some remaining funds, there will be a second call in February. All the projects need to be concluded by the end of the year. So of course, within the 2015, except the reporting, which can be done in early 2016, but all the activities, also in terms of eligible cost, needs to be finalized by the end of the year. For any kind of information, both Joanna and Francesca and the Secretariat are available to answer to any possible doubts or questions. Also, concerning the submission, we try to keep it easier, so the submission will be by email and no loads of papers and so on. So it will be also an easy way to submit, let's say, the proposal. And I'd say Joanna and Francesca are available for providing you further information concerning the technicalities of the call. I don't know if we have time to open a little bit question now.
Definitely we'll open to questions, but just before we do, thanks very much, Marco, for that. And we'll have a time for some questions on the project and the sub-granting scheme.
Let's take the questions now.
Okay, let's take the questions now, if there are any questions. On the project as a whole of the sub-granting, yes.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's quite nice that for the project that have this range from 6,000 to 70,000, but obviously depending which way you go with your allocation, you'll have a large number of events that are very small.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of what kind of figure you're aiming for, what kind of coverage you're trying to get with those ranges?
Okay, other questions? So that's more on the scale and the number of projects, I would say. Yeah.
One, in regards to the composition of the say consortium, could you please repeat if it's a good idea to team up with a non-CONCORD members also?
Okay. Yeah, so composition of the consortia that would be prioritised or that we're trying to favour in the subgranting? Laura.
Just drawing back for a moment in terms of what our goals are as CONCORD and also wider to the society on European nuclear development, because there's the Commission's view of that and then there's our own view of that. And I think that it's very, for me, what I would really like to see coming out of this in 2015 is that by the end of the year, we can show that CONCORD and others have done things differently in two ways. One is that we've done much more outreach to other sectors, so we don't just keep it within CONCORD, so we're really reaching out to the Green 10, to the social platform, to the EAPN, to the women's rights movements, etc., across the board. And we can demonstrate that. That would be a really good outcome, and it's sustainable. It's not just for the year. And that's second. And in doing that, we're really tackling this new commission that is really going to, mess things up in terms of equality in Europe and outside. And secondly, that we can show a different way of doing things, that we're not just organising advocacy activities in Brussels, but we're genuinely reaching out with different, new and exciting methods to citizens in Europe, across the board. So that's just, for the overall.
Great, thanks, Laura. Joanna.
Yeah, I want to say something a bit similar, but to build on that. I think particularly with the current institutional setting, the importance of operating at national level and organising and mobilising citizens at national level around some of these broader strategic debates are more important than ever. And we've always found it difficult to do as networks. So if there's anything that this project and this sub-granting can do to help facilitate and enable national level coming together of the national anti-poverty, environmental and development organisations, I think that would be really fantastic. Some of us in this room can perhaps help enable and facilitate that and giving the right contact details. But I think that's where the transformation will happen, not from lots and lots of more events in Brussels.
Great, thanks.
This might be different from us. One's are based in the UK, so we've obviously got a slightly tentative relationship with Europe already. But one thing that I want to ask is, for a lot of UK-based international development organisations, their large focus for 2015 is going to be Action 2015 as a movement. So trying to get them on board with the with the EYD as well is going to be a bit of a challenge. So what I'd like to know is, how do you think we can use the project to both complement Action 2015 but be distinct from it, so it's not just for UK organisations anyway? I appreciate it's different for EU organisations, but UK organisations, basically it's not just going to fall under the radar and Action 2015 be sort of in the limelight.
Thanks very much for that. That does make sense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Deirdre. And then
suggested that perhaps the sub-granting mechanism could look at maybe favouring or giving some preference to marginalised voices and giving more visibility and voice to those who typically don't have much say in public debates around important frameworks like the 2015 framework. So, for example, children, disabilities, and so on.
Very good point. Yeah.
I have a question on what you said about the two conferences, and if you already have some kind of timeline about when things will be decided, and also if you already know what kind of public you want to reach with this conference. It's like for organizations or for general public.
Great, thanks very much. Time for one more, or we go? Okay, let's just try and tackle this. Thanks very, very much. I mean, I note that was also suggestions for how to use the subgranting, which I think is really welcome, and I feel, from my understanding of it, that's still plenty of scope for that. So I think that's really, really good. Absolutely take those on board. And then some specific questions. So I don't know whether Marco, Francesca, you want to come back on the issue of what sort of scale and number of projects are we sort of anticipating or thinking about? What's our advice to applicants about consortia and with CONCORD members, not with CONCORD members?
The national level, Joanna.
Yeah. National level. Maybe just start with those three. Marco, do you want to have a go at that?
Concerning the consortium, there is one formal criteria indicated in the call, which each project needs to involve at least one CONCORD member. But then it's also strongly advised, because it's one of the main objectives and aim and goal of the year as well, to promote this cross-sectorial partnership in trying to involve people who are not involved or engaged on daily basis in our issues, what we on our organization take on daily basis. So, of course, there is not an indication concerning number of countries, or because it very much depends also on the requested grant. Of course, a request for 7,000 is different from a request for 60,000. Another criteria concerning this, which also affect the number of projects that will be granted, is that when there is the request for a grant higher than 40,000 euros, we expect to have a quite wide geographical impact. So a project asking for 40,000 euros grant should be transnational, actually, and not only focusing on national or local level. That's other indication which is highlighted in the call. So cross-sector approach very much encouraged, because as we say also during the whole morning, it's an asset for this year. It's one of the main goals to involve a wider spectrum of organization and institution. As for the numbers, of course, it will depend, I would say, also on the selection committee to assess the quality according to the work criteria indicated. I don't know if we have in mind, actually.
I have.
I know you have a specific number of projects, but we also try, of course, to have a balance between small projects and project having a wider impact. So this is the orientation that the selection committee will have according to what we discussed in the last few months.
Thanks very much, Marco. Maybe, Francesca, a quick word on the conferences and how people can get information on how that is developing and information about how that's developing.
Yeah, so as I mentioned already, one of the two was a little bit already discussed, because there were some CONCORD members and some partners like the Fair Trade Advocacy Office really strong in asking for an event on consumption and on consumers' behavior. So really one of key mainstreaming issues. But of course, again, as I said, the final title and the final issues are not completely decided. There are some CONCORD members already working on this, like ActionAid, WWF and Fair Trade. We welcome other partners, but this is one of the two conferences. And the Alliance will be asked to decide on the final titles, and especially the second event that might be in the second part of the year. We don't know yet when this conference will take place. I'm pretty sure that we will need to check first the calendar of the other big events already scheduled, and then see where to best fit also in the thematic months. So this is something that we should do together, brainstorming first on possible dates and possible topics. But we will give you more details on that also together with Sergi and other partners. If I may, just on the national level, because Joanna mentioned it, you have to be very careful in the subgranting, because as you know, in all almost in all member states except the Netherlands, you have national coordinators for the European Year for Development. And in some cases, you have civil society organizations receiving already some funding at their national level from their public institutions. In some other cases, you only have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs taking care of it, or the Ministry for Development. But in some others, you have even CONCORD National Platform dealing with this mask. For the subgranting mechanism of CONCORD is not to duplicate and not to have double funding. So we cannot accept projects and events that are already funded at national level. And the selection committee might ask more details on this. If you are trying to perhaps complement a smaller project, then we will have to see, but we cannot duplicate, so we cannot have double financing. This is important. I can give you the list of national coordinators in countries, so you know where in Europe are the people and where to ask. In some countries, I would say that it's even easier because you have CONCORD people and civil society people managing this money, which are not big amounts in some cases, but of course they have already planned important activities.
Okay, thanks for that. And if I just may, just to say that there's already quite a lot of information on the website and in the call for proposals about the details. The project team are there to answer questions, maybe link people up. So I think that should be also quite an interactive process. Just because time's getting on and we want to talk about Action 2015 and also answer the question from Bond, but maybe you know, as I said, I think a lot of the suggestions that came in were more suggestions than questions. And I think we want to sort of institutionalize that a little bit by inviting participation in the governance of the alliance. And that would include in the subcontracting. So Johanna, do you want to say a little bit how that might work and how people interested or organizations interested can get involved in the governance of this civil society alliance?
Yes, so very briefly, I just first start by saying that, so that everyone knows that related to the group work we had today, the list of participants, and then the debrief of the notes from the group works, they will be sent to you later on, so that you all know. And then also, if someone feels that you didn't get time enough for your ideas or to tell your plans in the groups, you can send your information directly to me as well, because we're going to do the debrief with Francesca, so we can include some more information to that as well. So that was the first one. And then for the second, the governance structure. As Seamus said, we would like to ask you to join, if you already haven't, the Civil Society Alliance group. And that means that you will be involved in the cooperation. And as it has been discussed today, it is supposed to be a sustainable cooperation, not just for this year. So you can find a form on CONCORD website, and you can also find the Charter of Values on the website. So you can go on there and just fill in the form and send it to us. And then Seamus already mentioned in the beginning that there will be a steering group. There has been a steering group and task force, as Tobias also mentioned today. But now the steering group will be enlarged, up to maximum 10 people as well. And what we would like you to do is to propose names. You can propose yourself or you can propose someone else. And there will be a 1 week time to send that information into my email. And then the process goes further from there. The existing steering group will check the list of the names, and the final decision will be made by the board of CONCORD on the steering group. And a little bit about the responsibilities and tasks of this steering group. The steering group will really be a decision-making body, which will strategically lead the Civil Society Alliance group, as well as the project. And so the steering group would convene approximately once a month. So that is something which is good to know. And the idea is that the steering group will be very actively work together with the Civil Society Alliance group. So there will be a lot of interaction, discussion, and consultation, and so on. And of course, also in addition to the leading the Civil Society Alliance and the project, the steering group will be important for the secretariat. So the secretariat will execute then the decisions made by the steering group. And there's the selection committee as well mentioned for the sub-granting mechanism that we already discussed. So basically, join the Civil Society Alliance on CONCORD website. Please send me an email with your names, and then we'll proceed from there. Thank you very much.
Thanks very, very much, Johanna. Going to be time for a bit of questions at the end, if I may. Or, sorry, do you want to go ahead and ask a question? Okay. Oh, okay.
Since it's so close, and I assume that all of you are based here in Brussels, maybe we could work together to have some kind of event also there. There's going to be 100,000 people that they expect.
Fantastic.
Is there anybody who has already made a flag with the logo of the European Year for Development and some other candidates?
That's a great idea. I think we'll be in touch with you on that. Yeah, European Year, European City of Culture, Mons, just down the road, capital of culture. Just down the road. Great, great. No, great idea. Thanks very much for that. I want to, because time is short and very, very precious for all of us in this room, so I want to just skip on to Action 2015 and ask Ingo Ritz from the Global Coalition of Action Against Poverty and the Action 2015 team here in Europe to tell us a little bit about Action 2015, how it relates to the European Year on Development.
Actually,
Do you want to come, Ollie? Yeah.
See your role play, but before I want to give you some papers. So, yeah, just afterwards. So, as we heard, there's a lot of excitement because many launches are going on today, and so I have this press release, which is a European press release. You see some of the examples here. Not all launches are actually listed here. Then we have this letter, which was mentioned by Tobias, which is addressed to world leaders, CC to everyone else. So actually, what is going on local, national level, what people are doing is the most important, but it's also good to have backing of some of those people. And then I have here a general flyer with some of the key moments of the year. So I hope you can manage to take that. I'll just do it like this. And finally, from GCAT, we have 15 solutions for 2015. So to give some flesh to it, because Action 2015 is very broad, fighting against poverty, inequality, and climate change. Each organization is really asked to do their own public demands. So here we have something about land grabbing, about tax justice, about violence against women. So I guess we give you that as well. Now we see a role play by Ollie Hammond from Civicus. Oh, she's already here. And Claire Menal, who is the GCAT Europe coordinator and also the coordinator for Action 2015 in Europe. Please.
Thanks, Seamus. Thanks, Ingo. So we had an idea to do this as a kind of bit of a conversation in a cafe, but a lot of the issues that we were going to cover have already actually been covered in terms of the calendar key moments. But we'll still cover a little bit of that. But I think we also need to tackle the question that was raised about how do we make the links and the bridges between the year and Action 2015. So Claire, what exactly is Action 2015? Right, I've been seeing a lot on Twitter. There's a lot of people tweeting all around the world. What's going on with this?
Sure. Well, Action 2015 is really gaining momentum today, as it's the day launch, and indeed I've seen myself a lot of stuff going on social media, on Twitter, on Euractiv, for example, this article about the campaign, about an open letter to world leaders by several personalities. And
like who, for example?
Well, for example, Shakira, you most probably know her.
Shakira.
But also
Malala
Eva
as well?
Joly.
Was Malala Yousafzai as well?
Yeah, Malala as
Right.
well, who won the Nobel Peace Prize recently. So yeah, there are actually a couple of people, Ben Affleck as well, I'm sure you know him.
Heard of him, yeah.
So yeah, it looks really impressive actually, all this support we're getting today from more than 1,000 organizations in the world, in 125 countries, and in Europe as well, people are taking part, and plenty of actions are.
How many organizations, more or less, around the world?
Around the world, more than 1,000. I don't have the exact figures in mind because it's actually increasing live. So yeah, but we are more than 1,000 now, and for us in Europe, I think it's really a great opportunity as well as the European Union development to get involved in that campaign. So not just to act as Europeans, but to act as global citizens and be part of the global citizens movement.
So this isn't just about Europe. This is a global moment, right? What are some of the key moments that are coming up this year that we need to influence?
Well, first of all, I guess the 8th of March is a very important moment. Of course, this needs to be agreed with our colleagues from the women's movement, but I guess they have a lot to say. I mean, there is actually a lot to say with Beijing +20, for example. So that's the first key moment. Then we will have also in May global moves for justice mobilizations. So calling last time before the intergovernmental negotiations for the post-2015 summit are actually over. We want to call again and make big noise around that and involving people, involving like your family members, your neighbors, people who just don't know usually about all of these intergovernmental summits and how it will affect their own lives.
Then there's a big UN meeting in September, right? This is where they'll agree the new goals. And of course, December, the climate change targets to be agreed. But this isn't so much about those institutions, it's about citizens, right? But
exactly, because that's decisions will actually affect everybody there. Everybody in this room, not because just we are working on that issues, we've been working on that for years, but very simply as human beings on this earth, everybody will be touched, and future generation as well, of course.
And what can we do as individual citizens? What kind of thing can we get involved with?
Well, as individual citizens, very often people think they don't really have that much of a power. People think they don't have very much of a leeway and cannot really talk to their world leaders. So we actually have a big role in helping them to their leaders and letting them know what they want, what kind of world they want for after 2015. And making sure as well that those people are very well informed about the decisions which would have been made and able to hold the governments into account in the next years to make sure that there is actually a citizen ownership of those decisions, which will affect everybody on the earth.
Thank you.
Basically, to also propose something very concrete right now, something I would like to do as citizens is to show that I'm part of this citizens movement, and I would like to invite you to join me in this. So if you could maybe use one of the papers which just has been distributed to you, I would love to read about your fight from the past years, and actually right now also what you will be planning for 2015. For example, I mean, Action 2015, it's a very broad thing. I think it really encompasses all of the topics that we all are working on, that each of you is working on. And for me, for example, on personal level as well, I would say, okay, I am fighting for more sustainable consumption. Or other examples could be, I am for creating just conditions that enable us all to live together in peace. So, for example, I'm referring basically to the terrible attacks against Charlie Hebdo, and I was very touched by that. And I really think that it's also up to us to follow up on that, because a lot of people show their support throughout the world, and there are questions about how to follow up. Well, how to follow up? It's a global responsibility, actually, to create the conditions for a world that can live in peace, that can respect everybody, every beliefs, and at the same time guarantee democracy and freedom for press and freedom of expression. So that's just an example of how things can be linked together, but I'm sure that you can find plenty of examples in your day-to-day fight on why you are Action 2015 and what you will do, what you are doing already to make 2015 a year of action.
Can I just say, before we open up to questions and before we do this action ourselves, maybe Inga and I just briefly reflect on the point that was raised before, and before we hand back to Seamus, just some ideas on how this links with the year of development. What is it we're trying to achieve together? And there's been a lot of conversation about that. I think Tobias has had I can't remember exactly how you formulated about one movement with one campaign, two logos, that this is really a kind of joint campaign that actually encompasses not just the work we're doing, but also beyond 2015, other post-2015 initiatives that are going on in New York and other parts of the world. There's clearly a kind of a moment of change here. And I think if we can all use this moment in constructive ways and complementary ways, our voices will be stronger. But I think that the point that has come through from Claire is that the Action 2015 is very much about individual citizen action. It's less the kind of institutional lobbying, if you like. It's more a kind of citizen action end of the spectrum of activities. So, I don't know if you should hand to Ingo. Do you want to add to that?
No, I think it was very well. I just wanted to ask Alexandra.
So just in line with what you, Claire, just mentioned, is that this is the action we can take at this point, is that during your kind of really quick lunch break, you could come here and then maybe write down your name. I am, for example, Alexandra, and I am, I don't know, fighting for child rights or for anything that you really strongly support, and then we can take a photo, tweet, and put it up on your websites or whatever. We can kind of strategize afterwards. So just come to me or to my colleague here, and we'll be doing this.
And you're going to be just out here in the canteen, or just
maybe we can actually start now writing your engagements.
And this is happening all around the world today. We're doing these Action 2015 selfies. So various people are just taking pictures themselves with this same hashtag all over the world.
Great. Thanks very much. Any questions or comments on Action 2015 specifically?
Yeah, so to be practical, I would say that because here you're not actually asking to join or to support institutionally. So the ask that you've got to us is that, can I describe it like if we do Europe activities in Europe that are citizen-oriented and citizens-led initiatives, that we label it as well as Action 2015? Is that the ask, to give visibility to the campaign, or do you expect us to do something else?
I think that is one option, but the main point is to be active as civil society and to do things also together. So, for example, in this key moments, for example, in May and September, to do something together that this is visible in the world. So, whether you want to use the Action 2015 label or not, that is not the most important. That's up to you. But that we as civil society do something together, and I think one point of us here in Europe, in Brussels especially, is to spread this information to the people around Europe, to the members, and to engage people, and to give this opportunity to do something together.
Yeah, I just not so clear about the process. I suppose I can see quite clearly the communication angle, that we communicate both about the year, but also communicate what we're doing on this label. But actually, in terms of structure for bringing people together, or any access to funding, or what we understand from the other strand of the alliance, what is it you're offering?
So, I mean, globally, it's a very, very light structure. And I think it's important that we stress that there's not a huge amount of funding directly attached to Action 2015. It's really about a little bit, as Sergio was suggesting, about linking messages and coordinating joint work. There is a light global hub which Civicus actually hosts and helps to facilitate, which is not really based in one place. So there's somebody in Hong Kong, there's somebody in Singapore, there are people in London, Save the Children have a number of people, there are people in New York, but it's done in a very decentralized kind of way. And clearly in Europe, GCAP is driving it. Inga, do you want to add anything specific on the Europe side?
Maybe one thing why it could be interesting for you to get interested in this. I mean, what I think is really enriching is you can sign up to this campaign. It's very easy. It doesn't commit you to anything beside a value charter where everybody can buy in, I guess. But then to get in contact, and even if it's just passive reception of all these dynamics which are happening, is quite impressive. But I just say, I mean, I just got another email, 2,000 students gathered somewhere in India, formulating their ask and so on. So I think it's also nice to get non-European perspectives and inspiration from what people are doing all over the world. And then very concretely, of course, there are some tools which are shared, some communication tools. There is a short 2-minute film which is available in, I don't know, 7 different languages, which can be used then and tweeted, actually 2015/European Year for Development. Why not, for example? All these communication tools are open source, and in terms of funding, there is even money, but this is prioritized for for people or initiatives in poorer countries. So us here, European actors, most likely wouldn't have access to this, which also makes sense, I think, because we have also the European Year for Development and so on. But I mean, there is also some funding background involved, which enables then many people to actually get active in this.
That's a really good point. And I didn't mention that, as you said, I mean, South Africa, India, many different African countries, there's a lot of activity already happening. And you're right, I mean, Twitter and the feed that we're getting at the moment is huge. And it's true, the funds have been more directed towards supporting emerging countries.
Yes, I really believe, in the same sense what Tobias said, if we want to have a successful European Year for Development, it makes sense to be part in the global movement. And of course, I mean, that is the views, perspectives from the Global South, but of course, to be strong, it's also necessary to be together. And so, for example, what I always remember is Jubilee 2000 was a very strong movement. It was successful. So now this year we have the climate negotiations, and it's the first time I see really that the climate movement and the development, global justice movement really work sincerely together, or seriously together. So I think that's really a big opportunity.
Is it, you're going to do an event now, a media stunt now? Can we participate in that, or is there something we can do now? Is there something foreseen for now, or are there selfies?
Well, the idea was that the selfies is a good start, and I think if people would like, we could go and take all our selfies to the front of the Parliament. I don't know, Ingo, if you want to add to that.
Yes, actually, yeah. So the idea is to go to Place Luxembourg to do a picture there in front of the Parliament, and we have this banner here. So actually, before we thought to have more interesting stuff, so we had different ideas, but we couldn't realize, because the Belgian coalition 11-11-11 will do the launch next week on 22nd, because they couldn't meet the minister today, maybe they meet the prime minister next week. Therefore, they asked us not to do this. So we will do just for the European, and then to tweet and to put it on social media, so that we are part of the 50 countries where the launch is happening. It would be great if many would come. So how's the procedure now?
I'm going to wrap up now with a couple of words of conclusion, because I think we've got to the end of our time, and then I think we'll gather together, whoever wants to come and participate. I'm certainly happy to do that. And we'll go over to Place Luxembourg just down the road.
Please don't forget as well to write down your day-to-day fight, to just show what you would like Action 2050 to be.
And then I will wait you like round the hall here and see where we get to this door, and then we take a photo, and then we'll
Great,
share it around.
great. So pass by Alexandra and then off to Place Luxembourg. Was there?
I would probably say any time related to finance issues, not even political foundation, that's already with the Finance for Development Conference. I think it would be really good to challenge the European Union and explore all over the world in terms of ODA, justice, debt, it's a private world, private sector. I was wondering within Action 2050, this any kind of idea or something.
Yeah, the conference in July in Addis Ababa is definitely very important. So that's another moment. We are not yet sure how much we can mobilize, like the European public, but definitely it's important for many countries in the Global South, particularly in Africa. But we need to put this pressure also on the EU. So let's think together.
Deirdre, very quick. Yep.
That's triggered for me. I'm thinking about, if the EU institutions were putting together, or let's say the UN institutions were putting together a global movement, and we're talking about a global partnership for development under the post-2015 framework. They're including the private sector in that, and we're going to see the private sector really being promoted very strongly and pushed, not just by European governments, but as I say, by UN institutions and governments elsewhere. And I think that this civil society alliance could be the counterweight to that, because if we don't mobilize very strongly ourselves and be really clear on what our demands are for this new global framework, I think we will see the private sector being integrated into everything, that funding, financing mechanisms, so on, being designed to facilitate private sector involvement. And so, all our calls, all our hopes for the new framework will be for nothing if we're not in a position to have as significant a voice in the overall negotiations as the private sector. And the governments who are supporting them. So I think that's one of, for me, it's a really good reasons for belonging to Action 2015 and a bigger global movement.
Laura?
Just a short practical question, because there's a lot of ideas here that are maybe 60-80% formed, but not entirely, and there's some that I think a lot of people would like to get involved in, but how do we share that information going forward now, given that there is some money, but it's quite tight deadlines?
Okay, let me try and address that in a couple of closing remarks by observing that this is the start. I think it's a really good start. I've been really very happy that so many of you have come from a very diverse group of organizations. That's something we wanted to achieve, and it's really, thank you very much, all of you, for coming here. I think to pick up on what a couple of people said, the European Year must not only happen in Brussels and must not only happen in an institutional setting. And I think many of us represent European networks, the energy of which and the membership with which is at member state level. And I think that that's very important, that we use the European Year to have activities and energy going on, and that we interconnect with what's going on at national level. So I think that needs to be a very important theme. I think from here, we will try and harvest a lot of the ideas that have come in. I think then we need to refresh our governance structure, and the steering committee and the alliance that we're forming here now will be the ones to take on the suggestions that have come up and to take on some of these issues that have come up. What are our asks for the year? How do we want to organize ourselves? What is the messaging, and so on? So I think we will ask those people to take that forward. So again, a real appeal to all of you to think of people with some time, with some energy, from the diverse civil society groups that we represent to be part of that governance structure. What else to say? The last thing I wanted to say, very, very importantly, is to thank the project team of CONCORD, who have worked very, very hard in a very, very short period of time to get together this meeting. And also, they've been very much supported by the steering committee, Tobias and Marco here, but very many thanks to Joanna, who's just joined us, to Francesca and to Daniel, to the colleagues from Action 2015 for organising this event. And I think that when the refreshed governance structure gets together, we'll be back in touch with everybody for the next stage. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Ready to take on the Parliament.
Yeah, let's go and let's go outside. Let's take it outside.
I like the setup here as well. You've got a good space. It's a building works well.
Yeah.
The building works well. You kind of have the cafe there. Yeah.
But we're refurbishing this room. Unfortunately, we're not, and that will make it easier to get tables out of the way and get spaces and all this stuff in the middle.
Thanks for watching. We're closing down now. Thank you.